She was about to say "I do" to a man in a wheelchair when he suddenly stood up and changed her life forever. But before that earth-shattering moment, there was a secret eating her alive. A secret named Alex, and a love so pure it would break your heart. Elena had everything until the night the phone rang. Her parents were gone. Car crash. Rain-slicked highway. In 1 second, she lost the only people who ever truly loved her, and in the next second she found out they had also left her drowning in debt. The family estate, the only thing left, would go to a cousin she hated unless she married within 12 months. 28 years old, alone, terrified, scrolling through grief forums at 3 a.m. That's when Marcus slid into her messages. He never started with "sorry for your loss." He wrote, "I lost my legs 5 years ago, but I still found reasons to laugh every single day. If you ever need one of those reasons, I'm here." Something about his words felt like warm light in a freezer. They talked every night. He sent her silly memes when she cried. He listened for hours without fixing, just holding space. And when she finally met him, wheeling himself into the coffee shop with that crooked smile, she thought, he's safe. He's kind. He's the answer to the ticking clock. Marcus fell in love on day one. Elena fell into survival mode. She told herself it wasn't cruel. She told herself he would never have to know her heart wasn't fully his. They got engaged in 4 months. He cried when he proposed from his chair, holding up a ring he'd saved for 2 years to buy. She said yes while tasting guilt like metal in her mouth. Then came Alex. Tall, reckless, the kind of man who skydives for fun and kisses you against airport windows. He was the opposite of careful. He made her forget the funeral, forget the debt, forget the wheelchair waiting at home. The first time they slept together, she told herself it was stress relief. The 10th time she stopped lying. Hotel rooms, whispered lies about late meetings, lipstick stains she scrubbed off in airport bathrooms. Every time she came home, Marcus was there with soup, with soft blankets, asking, "Rough day, baby," and wheeling himself closer to hold her while she pretended the tears were only about work. He noticed everything. The new perfume, the way she flinched when his fingers brushed her phone, the hickeys she covered with scarves. But Marcus had spent 5 years rebuilding a broken body. He knew how to be patient. He started secret physical therapy at 5 a.m. while she was at yoga. Hours of torture just to feel his toes twitch. He told the therapist, "I want to dance with my wife on our wedding day." The therapist laughed until he saw the fire in Marcus's eyes. Then he stopped laughing. Elena planned a dream wedding because appearances mattered. Ice sculptures, 10-tier cake, string quartet. Marcus planned surprises. He practiced standing in the garage when she was asleep. He wrote vows that took him weeks because every word had to be perfect. He ordered custom shoes he might never be strong enough to wear. And every night he prayed she would choose him, really choose him. Before the day he proved he could stand point 2 nights before the wedding, Alex booked a hotel room and begged her to run away with him. "You don't owe him your life just because he's in a chair." She almost went. She stood in the doorway with a suitcase and looked back at Marcus sleeping peacefully, one arm stretched toward her side of the bed, like even unconscious he couldn't bear the distance. She closed the door and stayed. But she didn't end it with Alex. She couldn't. She was addicted to the version of herself that felt wild and desired instead of guilty and trapped. The morning of the wedding, she threw up 3 times. Her maid of honor thought it was nerves. Elena knew it was shame wearing morning sickness clothes. She texted Alex, "After today, it's over." "I swear." He replied with a broken heart emoji and a photo of the corsage he'd bought to crash the reception. She deleted the message, but the image burned behind her eyes. Guests filled the garden. White chairs, rose petals, golden sunlight. Marcus waited at the altar in a tux that hid the braces locked around his legs. His mother cried quietly in the front row because she knew what was coming. Elena walked down the aisle, feeling every stare like 1,000 tiny knives. When she reached him, Marcus took her shaking hands and whispered, "You are so beautiful, I forgot how to breathe." She almost confessed right there, almost fell to her knees and told him everything. Instead, she smiled the smile that had fooled everyone for months, vows. Rings. The moment the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus squeezed her fingers and mouthed, "Wait." Then, under the stunned silence of 300 guests, he let go of the chair, locked his knees, pushed. His arms shook violently. Veins stood out in his neck, and he rose. 1 inch, 2, until he stood trembling but upright for the first time in 5 years. The garden exploded in gasps and tears. Elena's bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor like a gunshot. He took one step, then another, reached for her waist with hands that hadn't stopped shaking since the accident. "I wanted to dance with my wife," he rasped, voice breaking. Cameras flashed. People sobbed openly. Elena couldn't breathe, because right then, in the middle of the purest love she had ever witnessed, Alex decided that was the moment to destroy everything as he stormed down the aisle yelling her name, waving his phone, screaming the truth for the world to hear. The garden went dead silent, except for Elena's choked sob. Marcus swayed on legs that had carried him 10 feet for her, staring at the woman he would have died for, while she shattered in front of him. The garden froze. 300 people, one heartbeat. Alex's voice cracked like a whip. "Tell them, Elena. Tell them how you've been in my bed for 8 months while he was killing himself in therapy for you." Phones came out. Mothers covered children's ears. Elena's knees buckled. The only thing keeping her upright was Marcus's hand still locked around her waist, the hand of a man who had just performed a miracle and was now watching it burn. Marcus didn't fall. His new legs shook like a newborn deer shook harder, but he stayed standing, eyes never leaving her face. The silence stretched so long it hurt. Then he spoke, quiet, raw, loud enough for only the front rows, but somehow everyone heard. "I already knew." A second wave of gasps. Elena's head snapped up. Tears and mascara ran black rivers down her cheeks. "What?" "I knew the first time you came home smelling like someone else's cologne. I knew when you started locking your phone. I knew when you cried in the shower and told me it was allergies." His voice cracked, but the words kept coming. "I chose to love you anyway, because love isn't blind. It just decides some things are worth the pain." Alex laughed, bitter and ugly. "You're pathetic, man." She never loved. Marcus turned his head, slow, deliberate, still balancing on legs that screamed for relief. "Get out." 2 words. No yelling, no pleading, just steel. Alex opened his mouth again, but Marcus's best man and 2 cousins were already moving. They dragged him out while he shouted curses that died against the hedges. The officiant looked lost. The photographer had stopped taking pictures. Elena tried to speak, but only a broken animal sound came out. Marcus lowered himself, very carefully, back into the wheelchair that had been pushed aside. The click of the brakes sounded like a gunshot that he wheeled an inch closer. Took her cold hands. "Look at me." She couldn't. He waited until she did. "I didn't stand up today to trap you. I stood up because I wanted you to know you were worth every drop of blood and sweat I left on that therapy floor. But I won't make you stay with a man you don't want. If you want Alex, if you want freedom, take it. Right now. I'll sign whatever papers you need tomorrow." The crowd was openly crying now. Someone's grandmother was praying in Spanish. Elena stared at the man who had just handed her an exit wrapped in the purest love she'd ever been offered. And something inside her snapped, not from guilt, but from clarity. She dropped to her knees in the grass, white dress be damned, and pressed her forehead to his hands. "I don't want Alex. I don't want freedom. I want you. I'm disgusting and terrified and I don't deserve you, but I want you." Her voice shredded. "Please don't let me go. Punish me, hate me, anything. Just don't let me go." Marcus exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 8 months. Then he did the last thing anyone expected. He laughed, small, wet, disbelieving, and pulled her in his lap right there in front of everyone. She clung to his neck, sobbing so hard the veil came loose and floated to the ground like surrendered. He stroked her hair and spoke into the microphone still pinned to his lapel so the whole garden heard the final vow he hadn't planned. Then we start over. Today, clean page. You keep the ring, I keep you, and we keep the promises we just made. Only this time we mean them with everything we've got. Deal. She nodded against his shoulder, unable to speak. The guests erupted, applause, whistles, ugly crying. The string quartet, bless them, struck up an unplanned Can't Help Falling in Love, and Marcus locked the chair brakes again. He looked at his best man. Help me up one more time. For strong arms lifted him. He stood, swaying, and held out a hand to his wife. Elena took it, trembling just as hard. They walked, well, shuffled, 3 entire steps to the center of the aisle for their first dance. His legs gave out on the 4th, but she caught him, and they sank laughing and crying into each other while the guests circled them like a hug point. 6 months later, the video of that dance went viral. The groom who stood up twice in one day, once for love, once for forgiveness. Comments flooded in. This is the realest thing I've ever seen. I'm not crying, you're crying. Marriage goals. Elena quit her job, sold the flashy apartment. They moved to a quiet house with wide doorways and a garden big enough for Marcus to walk a little farther every day. She started therapy. He kept his. They fought raw, loud, honest fights, then made up louder. She learned his body's new limits and possibilities. He learned the difference between being needed and being chosen. Every night, she fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, whispering the same thing. I'm here. I choose you. Today, I choose you again. And every morning, Marcus woke up, flexed toes that still tingled with pins and needles, looked at the woman who had almost destroyed them both, and smiled. Because love, the real kind, isn't pretty. It bleeds. It stands up on broken legs. It forgives when it has every right to walk away.